Recently, there's been a new playstyle spreading around top lane, and that is running a full volatile early game setup. Where these past couple of seasons, most players have naturally gravitated towards running more consistent runes, items, and spells. So think TP Flash, Doran Shield, Grasp second win and cookies if your champion can take it, because this is a lot easier to go even or ahead in the majority of games that you play. It's very, very consistent. But is consistency really the best every time? Because you're really limiting your options to truly exploit the game, where a lot of players are starting to run more aggressive setups like Press the Attack, Phase Rush, Ignite Flash, Doran's Blade, and taking full control of the lane early. Now, of course, this is a more risky style, but it's going to have a lot bigger of a reward. So today we're going to be breaking down, should the average player be gravitating towards this new playstyle, or should we stay safe at home wrapped in our blanket with our Doran Shield and our TP and play for consistency? We're going to be weighing up the pros and cons and breaking down some strong examples. So if that sounds good to you, then let's get started. Now, this playstyle started to get a lot more popular when this player hit rank 1 2000 LP on the Korean solo queue ladder, playing exclusively Ignite and early game setups. Now, Fiora is his main pick. Of course, that champion is heavily rewarded from playing aggressive early game, but he does it on pretty much every champ that he plays. He'll run it on Jax with lethal tempo Ignite, Shen, Aurelia, even Camille, he'll run Ignite Flash with PTA, and really try to exploit the game and create as much pressure as possible. So don't feel like this is exclusively for strong early game champs like Fiora or Riven. You can run this on a lot of top lane champs. A lot of other players have started to follow suit. Other Fiora players have moved on from Grasp and D-Shield to Ignite and PTA. Renekton players have started to take PTA Ignite a lot more when D-Shield TP was a standard, and they're having a lot more success now because they're exploding early games, they're creating a lot more pressure than just going even or slightly winning in the majority of their games and quote-unquote scaling a little better. The best scaling in top lane is to dominate your lane and gain leads, so we're going to be breaking down some examples of that. So to kick things off, I have two examples of myself playing the exact same matchup back to back. The first one, in this example right here, I'm playing a standard setup with TP, Grasp, and Bow playing into Jax, so taking nice short trades. And the second one, I run a more aggressive setup with PTA and Ignite. So you can see so far so good. I baited out his first E, and now I'm looking to chip away at him when he's low HP and really punish that extended cooldown. Really trying to abuse my extra Q spacing and Grasp procs to slowly chip away at him. When you run this Grasp page, you mainly want to be looking for nice 100-0 trades, get your opponent lower and lower, and then go for the all-in when they're low HP. So far so good. We've taken no damage at all, and we've constantly forced trades onto him, abusing our range advantage and the extra poke and sustain from this rune. So you can see max range Qs there, not letting him hit me in response. So far so good, and normally Jax will get prior in this matchup, but because we played the matchup to a really good level, baiting a spell and poking him when it's on cooldown, and he of course made mistakes with Z, we're able to flip the prior completely and just keep poking him down lower and lower. So far so good. You can see here building up this nice big 3-stack wave. He's got about half HP right now with no potion. We're almost full with our potion and cookie, so completely running over this matchup. So after we crash this wave here, we just go get our ward down, come back in, and of course looking to repeat the process. The goal is always with this type of rune setup with Grasp and, sometimes D-Shield, just keep chipping away at your opponent, nice short trades, and try to collect the kill when they're low HP, or make them base at a bad time, and you gain a big XP advantage. So you can see here, baiting out his E again, trying to punish him when it's on cooldown, just barely not able to get that vital, but we're still able to get him to low HP. So really, really good start. He jumps in here, of course he's making some mistakes there we're punishing. This Jax is not playing super well by any means, but we've really hard punished him and abused the fact that we've got this nice graph short trading setup to keep chipping away at him, consistently proccing it whenever we can. You can see really abusing the max range of my Q here. So we'll skip ahead a little bit. Eventually, I call up my jungler, and we're able to dive. But you can see it's just so hard for me to really execute and make progress by myself. We call up the jungler here, and we're able to get the kill. We do trade 1-for-1 here. So it took around 4 minutes 30 of me slowly chipping away at this guy and having to get my jungler involved for me to get to the point where I was able to really collect a reward here. Now, keep in mind, he made a lot of mistakes and I played it to a pretty good level, I would say, and we still took a long time to collect a meaningful advantage, and we needed jungle resources as well. And now let's compare that to this game right here, where I went full aggressive early game setup with Press the Attack and Ignite. But keep in mind, this Jax player also did it. He's got lethal tempo, Ignite as D-Blade as well. So you can imagine right now in this moment, I baited out his E, I have PTA Ignite. If he went Grasp and D-Shield and TP, if he hasn't caught onto the new setup as well, he would have to run away. I'd be chasing him down. I would get a really big trade in this timer. But because he has lethal tempo Ignite, you can see the threat of his damage makes me back off here. So he's able to completely stop me from running him down in that moment. and he's able to match my early aggression setup. Where if he didn't have that, I would get Pro in this game, and getting Pro in this matchup for our Fiora Jax players out there is a massive deal for Fiora, and a really bad problem for Jax. You can see it, trying to bait out his E, so still playing it in a similar way to I played the last matchup, but I've got more options as you'll see later on in this lane. So here he's going to get level 2 before me. Again, he's playing better than the previous Jax, so I have to respect that timer. I cannot let him get free damage onto me. You know, always got to respect that level disadvantage. But here, I'm going to get level 2, so now we can play the game. So max range Q, try to parry a Z. Could have placed my W a lot better, but pretty good movement by him as well. So you can see, very, very volatile. This is the type of matchup where whoever gets the first kill will completely explode the other player. So I have to play it very, very disciplined. One mistake here can cost me big time. So of course, if you run Grasp and D-Shield, you're allowed to make more mistakes, but you do have less options as well. So waiting for my W to come back up. If I queued him right now, he would be able to jump onto me. I have to wait for the W before I go for it. Just failed the spacing there with the Q, so not able to get the Vital there. So to play a little bit chill here, but I am looking for the timer where I'm level 3, and his E is on cooldown, which is right now. So it's time to go on to him, and you can just see right now straight away the difference with PTA Ignite, how much threat I have in this situation. I actually played the trades a little bit worse in this matchup, and this Jax actually played a little bit better, but I was still able to completely run him over and kill him level 3. So if we go back to it, you can see him, his E's on cooldown, he's around 60% HP, but that's more than low enough for me to run him down with the setup, and at this point is completely out of the game. He has no TP as well, but even if he hadn't, my wave is frozen, I can base on this freeze, and now he's at a really massive disadvantage. Now, I'm guessing at this point, after seeing it in action, you're wanting to give it a try yourself, and I definitely do recommend it, especially if your champion thrives in volatility, depending on the matchup, but it is important that you understand the benefits, but also the potential downsides as well. So starting with the benefits, of course, you are way more likely to exploit the early game. You're loading into the game, giving yourself more options to gain early game leads if you execute correctly. And something else that's quite important to think about, you're more likely to draw early game jungle pressure. Now, to some, that may seem like a downside. Of course, we hate getting ganked by those annoying junglers. However, keep in mind, drawing pressure is a way for you to carry the early game because top laners can't really roam that much. Of course, if you get Prio on like a Riven, Malphite, or Camille or something and you gank mid, of course, you can probably get a kill, but how consistent of a strategy is that? It's actually very rare that we're completely taking over the enemy jungle and their mid, depending on the champ, or ganking bottom, but making the enemy jungler forced to come top and not giving him anything will contribute to the early game in some way. Now, of course, you're going to play some games where that happens and your bot lane still loses. We can't tunnel on that too much. You join the enemy jungler to top, let's say they gank you 4 or 5 times, and they only get small advantages from it, maybe just 1 kill or 0, that's 5 kills away from your bot lane who would have guaranteed to die to their gank, or at the very least lost a lot more than you, because if you have full control on your lane, and you have a good understanding of where the jungler is, your vision, things of that nature, and you're not really giving anything away, you're going to be in a really good position. Keep in mind as well, with early game aggressive setups, you're way more likely to win an early game 2v2 if your jungler is also involved. So this way is not just a way for you to win 1v1, it will also draw a lot of pressure from the enemy team. Now, keep in mind as well, one more thing for your lane, you will be able to gain priority in a lot of matchups so you can't really do it. So, for example, a matchup where you play Fiora into Renekton, if you take Grasp on Fiora, the Renekton can just brute force prior if he wants to, but if Renekton tries to do that versus a PTA Ignite Darkblade Fiora, he's probably going to get killed, so you're going to be able to get priority, level 1 advantage, which leads to level 2 vs 1, level 3 vs 2, leads to getting the first recall, and a lot of matchups that you otherwise wouldn't be able to, and that can have a massive effect in your early lane. And as for the not so fun parts about this playstyle, the potential downsides, it's really important that if you are planning to run this setup, that you manage your expectations and you head into the game knowing any mistake you make is going to cost you a lot more. So let's say you take a bad trade, but you have D-Shield, second wind, and TP, it might not even matter that much depending on the matchup, but that exact same trade with D-Blade Ignite and no regen runes, it might cost you a lot more. And a big mistake like dying to a gank, getting solo killed with a bad wave, missing a base timer, that can completely ruin your game. So really keep in mind, you're going to have a lot more options, but the mistakes you make are going to cost you a lot more. Now, the other one to keep in mind, you're going to have to play the mid game without teleport. For some players, they might be more used to it if you play champs like Riven. For others, it might be quite annoying for them. The one thing to keep in mind is you need to be making sure you arrive to the objective on time if you are planning to fight it. So let's say Dragon's up in 90 seconds. You push in top wave, you make your opponent react, and then you rock up to the dragon early. You don't have that luxury of, if my team fights, I'll TP in, or I'll push in this one more wave and then TP or greed my item. If you want to fight something, you have to be there on time before the fight begins, and that is a skill that you're going to have to practice if you're not running teleport as often. And one more bonus point I want to touch on if you do play this way is you are forced to learn how to trade correctly. You are going to learn the hard way. Any bad trade you make is really going to cost you a lot more. We are dropping the training wheels, we're dropping the Rock Lee weights, no more TP, no more D shield. You have to trade well. If you make big trading mistakes, you're really going to feel it. It's going to be completely brutal compared to what you're used to. So it's really good for learning. So if you're the type of player that gets very tilted at your own mistakes and it eats away at you, and you go from 0-2 to 0-10 pretty quickly, probably this is not the way to go for you. You might need the training wheels a little bit more until you can work on that mental toughness. But if you feel like you love the challenge, you're ready to bring it on, you're ready to go 0-3, 0-5 a few times and learn the hard way and truly figure out how to get the most out of your matchups and how to be as impactful as possible in the early game, then this is going to be a great way for you to learn because you truly have to learn or you're going to be inting consistently. Any bad trade you make, it's going to be very obvious to you, where if you have TP, D shield, and second win, you might be making a lot of small or big mistakes and not even realize it yet. Now that you understand the pros and cons, next we're going to be breaking down when you should actually be running this more aggressive setup and when you should just stick to standard. So the number one thing to look out for by far is the volatility in your matchup. So a volatile matchup is a lane where both parties are going to be heavy trading consistently. It's very snowbally either way most of the time, and small advantages can turn into big ones. There's just a lot of trading back and forwards that would be classed as volatile. So some examples would be Renekton versus Aatrox, really close skill matchup. If Renekton has Ignite, D-Blade, PTA, a lot more of an aggressive setup, you're going to have more options in that lane. Another example, my personal favorite, Olaf into Darius, where if you run Ghost and Flash, you actually lose the all-in against him, and it can be quite tricky to get prime. With Ignite Flash, you can make up for that early game power and really look to run them over and explode the game early. Even though you scale a lot worse, not having Ghost, the best scaling in top lane is exploding your lane. Some more examples would be Jackson to Olaf, so instead of going D-Shield, Grasp, and TP, where of course you can win lane with that, but it's a lot harder to explode the lane compared to Lethal Tempo, Ignite, D-Blade, and looking to really pressure him level 1. One more example, Darius versus Irelia. You've probably seen Xiao Ming when he plays matchups like this. He just goes Ignite Flash on Darius, not the Ghost, to purely dominate her in the early game. Now, an example of a standard setup would be matchups like Jackson to Gragas. You never want Lethal Tempo, you never want Ignite into Gragas. He's a full neutralizer, meatball. It's really easy for him to neutralize you and go even and scale up. And those types of matchups where it is hard to force an early game advantage, D-Shield, TP, they're going to be your best friends. Another example would be Mordekaiser vs. Tahm. I think Mordekaiser with Ignite is very underrated. Into Tahm, into Poppy, into these meatballs, just go TP, just go a little bit of extra scaling. You don't need the extra combat power and volatility from Ignite. It's better to be a bit more consistent because you can just win anyway, and the Ignite's not really going to be the difference maker. Now, Ornn into Aatrox. So if you're playing a tank, like an Ornn, like a Malphite, you probably don't want to be taking Ignite very often. You're mainly playing to just go even in lane and teamfight really well or slightly winning in lane, and your mid-game macro can be quite tricky without TPing because it's hard to get side push as a tank. If you're playing Ornn versus like a Tryndamere or an Alawi or something, you're probably not going to be pushing them in under tower even with Ignite unless you kill them a few times in lane. So I'm not saying you can't do this, give it a try if you're an Ornn main, and it sounds like fun, of course, but mainly when you play tanks or pure team fighting champions like Kennen, you mainly just look to team fight, and the mid game can be quite hard without teleport. And just one more example, Camille into Poppy. I think on Camille, you can run Ignite very often, you can run Conqueror or PTA, versus champs like Poppy or Malphite, just go Grasp and D-Shield, just go TP. You can do TP Ignite on Camille if you want, but these are the matches where you want to be going more standard, so you can kind of see if they can really easily neutralize you, go even, and it's kind of hard to make it volatile, hard to explode it, or they just completely dominate you in the sustain game and you can't force that early game advantage. You want to run a more standard setup, but if the champion is forced to fight you in lane, forced to fight you in side lane, it's very volatile and explosive either way, you might want to be looking to experiment with a more aggressive setup. Now, to help you visualize what types of champions you could be building more volatile setups on compared to what I normally see, and which champions should be defaulting to standard most of the time, I've created a tier list. I know how much you love these tier lists of exactly that. So starting with the champions that could be taking more volatile runes, items, summoner spells, you can see a common trend. A lot of them have, most of them have ways to force trades against your opponent. You can just force a trade onto them with Wukongi, with Kled, with Irelia. So having Ignite, having more early game all-in threat, if you understand how to get the wave in the right spot for you, how to control the wave, and what to do with the early game pro, you might be able to get by running a more aggressive setup. You're going to have a lot more options for you in these games. Now for the champions in standard, you can see champs like Ornn, champs like Maokai, you don't really want to be playing volatile early game, playing for level 1 extended trades, anything like that. A lot of these champions love short trades. Champs like Jace, champs like Poppy, Sion, normally you love 100 to 0 trades, poke your opponent down lower and lower. and then go for an all-in with their low HP. Where champions like Fiora, champions like Jax, Gwen, you do have the option to force long trades against your opponent. Of course, it always depends on the matchup. So like we talked about before, if you're playing Renekton versus Malphite, you probably don't need PTA and Ignite. You can just run TP and D-Shield and second win, maybe run Demolish as well, and play in that style. Where if you play Renekton the very next game, but you verse an Irelia or a Camille, maybe you can take a more aggressive setup with PTA Ignite and play for these early game advantages. So you can kind of see these champions default, kind of syncs up with their playstyle, but I'm not saying the champions in my standard tier list can never run Ignite. Of course, if you play Jason Aatrox and you feel really confident, why can't you run Ignite? Why can't you try to exploit the game? It's perfectly fine. I'm just saying more often than not, you should be defaulting to more standard setups on these champions. You don't really need or really want that playstyle with Ignite on champs like Cassiopeia or Alawi, anything like that. Most of these champions are playing a quite slow, conservative early game where you take nice short trades against your opponent. And most of them like to play for team fights in the mid game, where if you play a champion like Irelia, champion like Camille or Fiora, you always need a side lane in some way. So Ignite has value in lane and in the mid game. When you're laning on like a Jace, Ignite doesn't really do anything for you after lane compared to how valuable TP is. So it's not really going to be as worth it on these champions as others. And then the champions down below, they just always go Ignite or Barrier or Exhaust, something weird. So it doesn't really matter for them. They are already running the most aggressive setup most of the time, so there's no real changes for them. The main ones I see it so often: D Shield, TP Mordekaiser, when you could be running Ignite, D-Ring playing more aggressive, on Cleared, on Urgot, just TP every game, D-Shield. I'm getting bored. You need to be running more aggressive setups, trying to play for early game advantages, and if you make mistakes, learn the hard way, review it through the lens of what did I do wrong, what can I do better next time, because you have more options, you have more power in the game, so your mistakes are going to hurt a lot more. So make sure if you're coming into it, trying to play in a different way, you have that learning mindset. Alright team, that's it for now. I hope you enjoyed the video. My plan moving forward is to make 1 to 2 of these in this style every single week, so make sure you subscribe to see more of them, and let me know in the comments what concept you'd like to see me cover next. Maybe you struggle with mid-game macro, Baron setup, wave control, let me know in the comments, I'll see what I can do, and I'll see you all next time.